Hersheypark is an amusement park in Hershey, Pennsylvania, a town famous for holding the chocolate factories of the Hershey Company. Hersheypark is very near the complex where the Hershey chocolate is built, and for that reason, it's owned by the Hershey Company and features many rides and roller coasters themed to Hershey's different candies. The roller coasters here are top notch, and today we're going to be taking a look at which of them are the best. Let's get right into the ranking. Just a note here, Trailblazer was closed during my visit for scheduled maintenance, so this coaster won't be on the list. To start off the list, we have number 14, the park's Zamperla Kiddie Coaster, Coco Cruiser. Although this does have a typical kiddie coaster layout, there is no maximum height, so anyone looking for the credit can ride. This is a small ride with a small drop, a helix, and a turn to the station, but you get to go around 3 times, which is nice. There's not a lot of forces other than some laterals, but it's a fun little ride for a kiddie coaster, and it's good for younger kids visiting the park. Coming in at number 13, we have the park's Wild Mouse coaster. This coaster is a small coaster that features some small drops, hills, and the hallmark feature of the ride, unbanked turns that provide some crazy laterals. None of the trim brakes were on during my ride on this coaster, so this ride provided some incredible laterals, more than any I've ever gotten on a coaster. I've heard people say these restraints are uncomfortable, but they didn't bother me that much, and overall it was a fun little ride with some good laterals. Coming in at number 12 is the park's indoor spinning coaster, Laff Trakk. This ride is themed to a funhouse, and the coaster car spins throughout the layout, which is a neat addition and makes for a really fun family coaster. However, this ride does get a really long line, so if you visit Hersheypark, I recommend this being the coaster you head to first if you want to do it, because of its terrible capacity. Number 11 is going to be the SooperDooperLooper. This ride starts off with the best part of it, a small drop into a very intense loop. This loop has some great positive G-forces, but the rest of the ride kinda just meanders around the forest without too many good forces, although the way it interacts with the terrain is pretty cool, and you can get some good views of other rides like Great Bear, which goes pretty close to SooperDooperLooper. Overall, this is a fun little coaster with some intense moments, and I would recommend it for someone who's scared of inversions and wants to try out their first coaster with an inversion. Starting off our top 10, we have at number 10, Jolly Rancher Remix. This is a typical sit-down Vekoma boomerang with some modifications. Instead of the over-the-shoulder restraints that can be uncomfortable and cause headbanging, you have the new Vekoma vest restraints that eliminate headbanging and provide a more comfortable ride experience. In addition, there's a tunnel in between the Cobra Roll and the vertical loop. This tunnel features some sound effects and some interesting scent effects that smell like the different flavors of Jolly Rancher. This is the first time I've seen a scent effect on a roller coaster, but it's actually kind of neat. The one complaint I have about this coaster is that it doesn't quite fit in with the theme of the general area around it, which is Pioneer Frontier, which is supposed to be an Old West town themed area. Most of the roller coasters, especially Storm Runner and Trailblazer, do fit with this area, but Jolly Rancher Remix seems out of place for such an upbeat, high-tech looking roller coaster in a Wild West area. Overall though, it's a fun Vekoma boomerang, and the new restraints make it much more enjoyable than a typical Vekoma boomerang. Coming in at number 9, we have the park's classic PTC wooden coaster, Comet. This is a really neat wooden coaster, It's the oldest coaster at the park, and the age shows with such things as a small slanted station and a curved brake run, which are interesting features that don't detract from the ride, but it's just interesting to see how roller coasters used to be built. The ride itself is a pretty fun out and back journey with some really cool views of Skyrush, and if you time it right, you can get some near misses with the yellow hypercoaster. Some of the bunny hills provide floater airtime, but other than that, there's not too much in the way of forces. Overall though, it's a really neat classic wooden coaster. Number 8 is the lightning side of Lightning Racer, and number 7 is the thunder side of Lightning Racer. These dueling wooden coasters are located next to the Boardwalk Water Park, and that setting alone makes for a neat roller coaster. However, this wooden roller coaster is probably one of the most disappointing ride layouts I've ever been on. It's a fun ride, but other than the speed, there's not much in way of forces. The ride is completely devoid of airtime, and there's not much of positive forces either. There are some good laterals at moments, but it's not that much, and it's really just disappointing how they didn't put any airtime at all in this layout. However, due to the dueling factor of the two trains, and the sense of speed and large elements that you get on this roller coaster, it is at the place where it is, and Thunder side gets the edge over the Lightning side just for the extra whip over the first drop, which is the best part of the roller coaster. Just missing the top 5 at number 6 is the park's B&M invert, Great Bear. There's a pretty big berth between this park's top 6 and the rest of their roller coasters. Great Bear is an amazing B&M invert with some awesome views, great whip and inversions, and a drop that actually has a little bit of airtime to it. The helix before the drop provides some great positives and is a neat element for a B&M invert, and overall, this coaster feels like the best of both worlds between an old school B&M invert and a new B&M invert. New B&M inverts often have unique layouts like Banshee, but are taken slowly and don't offer much whip, while old school B&M inverts pretty much carry the same cookie cutter layout but provide some awesome whip and forces. This coaster seems to provide both, which is an awesome experience for a B&M invert to have. Overall, I place this above Banshee at Kings Island in my rankings, but below Raptor at Cedar Point. Number 5 is Fahrenheit, the park's Intamin Beyond Vertical drop coaster. This is an interesting Intamin that takes the trains from their old blitz and accelerator coasters, but has a layout reminiscent of that of a Gerstlauer Eurofighter, with a vertical lift, beyond vertical drop, cobra roll, Norwegian loop, and double corkscrew. The ride also has a great airtime hill with some incredible ejector airtime that really catches you by surprise. This ride seems just like a smorgasbord of different elements, but each one pops, and it's a really great ride that I definitely recommend checking out. Coming in at number 4 is the park's chocolate hypercoaster, Candemonium. Candemonium is an awesome B&M hyper that is chock full of floater airtime. Every single hill pops and gives some great airtime. However, this ride is kind of annoying because of the trim brakes that are sometimes on and sometimes off. I got one ride with the trim brakes off and 2 with the trim brakes on. Depending on whether these trim brakes are on or not, this ride can go from a good B&M hyper to a great B&M hyper because of the extra forces on the hill, the helix, and the outer bank, especially the latter. On my ride with the trims off, the outer bank really popped and gave some great intense ejector airtime. However, when the trims were on, the element barely did anything. For that reason, it's not in the top 3 at this park. Number 3 is Storm Runner. This amazing intimate accelerator coaster starts with a super punchy launch, then a top hat that has some great airtime up front and in the back, with the front offering more sustained floater while the back has a better pop of ejector. After this top hat airtime, you then enter a Cobra loop, which is an interesting Immelman that turns coming out of it, and then the best element on the ride, the flying snake dive. It starts by pulling up into the snake dive, which offers some great airtime up front and some mild floater in the back. Then, a heartline roll immediately followed by a twisted dive loop that offers an insane sensation that I honestly don't know how to describe. It's not hang time, although it does offer some of that around the top of the heartline roll, and it doesn't feel like Mystic Timbers style laterals. So I have to describe this sensation as a sort of sustained whip that feels like the feeling you get on Maverick switchbacks, but more sustained, and you get pulled to the side of the car continuously through the roll. It's an amazing experience and definitely one of the best elements on any coaster out there. However, it didn't beat the top two because this coaster is quite short and doesn't offer what I feel to be a complete ride experience. Coming in at number 2 is the park's new for 2023 hybrid coaster, Wildcat's Revenge. This coaster features a red rail color scheme with some awesome black cross ties on the brown wood, and it's a very beautiful coaster, but the coaster itself has some incredible forces. The drop has great ejector airtime in the back row, and the underflip is whippy. The giant camelback hill offers some insane airtime. The wave turns offer great airtime as well, and the 0G rolls and 0G stall have some great whip and hang time as well. The double down with a unbanked left turn in the middle of it offers airtime and laterals at the same time. The laterals hit you out of nowhere while you're still out of your seat, and it's an incredible experience. Overall, this is definitely one of the greatest coasters I've been on, as every element pops and offers some incredible forces. Coming in at number 1 and my number 2 overall coaster is Skyrush. The people who designed this coaster were absolutely out of their minds. When I ride a coaster, usually I like to keep my hands up the whole time, especially when I'm getting airtime. Not on Skyrush. This ride's hills absolutely feel like you're going to get launched to the moon. The airtime on them has to be at least negative 1.5 Gs. It is incredible airtime. And it's not just these insane hills that provide that experience. The drop in the back row starts to feel like a regular drop on a hypercoaster with some good floater, and then the ride hits a hump that starts to accelerate downwards at a faster speed and absolutely shoots you out of your seat, even more so than the hills. This drop is absolutely the best on any coaster I've ridden. Yes, the ride is shorter than a typical hyper, but it doesn't feel like it needs more because every single element is just so intense. The hills have insane airtime, the turns give incredible positives, the stangle dive and the twisted airtime hill have some crazy whip, especially in the left side of the train. People say the restraints hurt, but I didn't find them that painful. However, they will staple you, but on a ride with this much airtime, that's kinda necessary. Overall, this is an insane hypercoaster, and definitely the best ride at Hersheypark. Thanks guys for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please leave a like to help me out with the YouTube algorithm. If you enjoyed the video, make sure you subscribe to get more great coaster content just like this. Also, leave a comment on your opinion at the roller coasters here at Hersheypark. As always, thanks for watching. ZZ Coasters, signing off.